Welcome to our annual supervisor review of Tiffany's top 6 laws every supervisor should know. As you know, ABC Company takes our employees and their rights very seriously. We do so for many reasons. Our employees are the backbone of this company. Without them, we would not be able to do what we do. At the same time, we need to protect ABC Company by staying in compliance with state and federal employment regulations. We're going to spend some time taking a look at some of these regulations. Keep in mind, as supervisors, when it comes to hiring, firing, and giving promotions, there can be a lot of gray area. Not everything is black and white, or good employee or bad employee. It is important to keep in mind that we have a legal responsibility to both our employees and our company. So while it might be time-consuming, it's very important to stick with HR policies and procedures when it comes to hiring, firing, and promoting employees. Through everything, we need you to document this process. This will protect you and our company if anything comes up. So let's get started. Coming in at number 6 in Tiffany's top 6 laws every supervisor should know is number 6 is Title VII of the Civil Rights Act. This act states that companies cannot discriminate in the workplace based on an individual's sex, race, color, national origin, or religion. Recently, mental and physical disabilities and sexual orientation were added. So what does this mean? When you are considered an employee for hire, fire, or promotion, we can't refuse opportunity to an individual in one of those protected classes stated in any aspect of employment. This includes pay, job duties, layoffs, benefits, or training opportunities. Here at ABC Company, we value a diversified workforce because of all the benefits it brings us. When we pass up individuals in a protected class, we are missing out on a large pool of talented individuals. When our workforce is diversified, it represents our customer base, and that allows us to understand and provide better service. When we bring different viewpoints to the table, we are able to make the best decisions. In the past, discrimination in hiring was the #1 violation of this act. Today, fairness in promotion has moved to number 1. As supervisors, we need to always be aware of our unconscious bias. This is favoring an employee who reminds us of ourselves. This is not just a compliance issue, but a value that we hold high at ABC Company. We want to make sure that we are hiring and retaining the best. Number 5 is the Fair Labor Standards Act. The FLSA regulates minimum wage, overtime, and child labor issues. What does this mean? ABC Company has both exempt and non-exempt employees. Our exempt employees receive a salary. They are not qualified for overtime under FLSA. The primary focus of this law is on non-exempt employees. These are our hourly paid employees. Equal pay for equal work. This applies to both exempt and non-exempt employees. We must pay both male and female employees the same wages if they are performing the same job duties. If 2 jobs require the same skill, effort, and responsibilities and are performed under similar working conditions, the jobs are considered equal for the purpose of setting wages. Minor differences in skill required to complete the job duty is not a justified pay differential between male and female employees. Hours of work requires employers to pay at least minimum wage, $7.25 per hour, for all hours an employee works, and pay overtime for hours worked beyond 40 hours in a work week. Our work week starts on Sunday and ends on Saturday. Overtime rate is 1.5 times for all non-exempt rate of pay. Holidays, vacation, and sick days are not counted in overtime calculations. Overtime applies to hours worked, not hours paid. Our employees will clock in and clock out in documenting all of their work hours. Rest periods. Under FLSA, we do not need to pay employees for meal breaks as long as the employee is free from job responsibilities during that time. We do give our employees 2 15-minute breaks during their 8-hour workday. These are paid breaks. Child labor laws are addressed in FLSA. However, we do not employ individuals under the age of 18, so we do not need to address these regulations at this time. How do we follow this act? So we need to be aware of FLSA laws and regulations to ensure that we are in compliance with the regulations, as well as ensure that our employees are fairly compensated for their work time. It is critical that our supervisors are aware or in compliance with these laws. Without our supervisors, ABC Company would not be able to do this. It is also critical to follow policies and procedures in regard to work time, especially as it can impact overtime and other pay issues. What happens when we violate this law? Failure to comply with FLSA could result in monetary fines for the company as well as criminal prosecution of the individual in violation. Employees can file lawsuits seeking back wages and damages. Coming in at number 4 is the Americans with Disabilities Act. This prohibits discrimination based on a disability that substantially limits life activity. ADA requires employers to provide reasonable accommodation to an employee or a job applicant with a disability. The accommodation cannot cause the employer significant cost or difficulty. This law ensures that all individuals have equal access to jobs, compensation, and promotions. What does this mean? As a supervisor, it is critical to know what you can and cannot do regarding interviewing, hiring, and working with individuals with a disability. We can never reject an applicant because you think their disability would prevent them from doing the job. What is a disability that falls under ADA? A qualifying disability is one that significantly limits major life activity. This could include caring for self, sleeping, hearing, eating, walking, standing, sitting, reaching, lifting, bending, speaking, learning, reading, concentrating, thinking, or interacting with others. There are some mental health and medical conditions that also qualify as a disability. These could include epilepsy, paralysis, HIV infection, AIDS, hearing or vision impairment, cancer, post-traumatic stress syndrome, multiple sclerosis, bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, autism, intellectual impairment, mobility impairment, which would be wheelchair-bound or partial or missing limbs. What is a reasonable accommodation? A reasonable accommodation is any modification or adjustment to a job or work environment that will allow the employee with a disability to apply for the position or to perform the job duties. Examples of reasonable accommodations could include providing a special chair for an employee with a back injury, or giving regular breaks for an employee with diabetes so that they can eat or test their blood levels. Keep in mind that we do not need to comply with every accommodation. An example would be tolerating poor work performance unrelated to the disability is not an accommodation. How do we follow this act? During an interview, ADA applies to disabled individuals applying for positions in our company. We need to provide reasonable accommodations allowing individuals to complete the application process. During the application process and interview, we cannot ask the applicant about their disability. During the interview, stick to questions related to the individual's qualifications and the ability to do the job. You do not need to hire a disabled person who doesn't have the required skill or experience. However, if the disability is the reason you do not make an offer, you need to prove that the disability would interfere with the job duties. With our employees, after a job offer is made, you can ask questions that are disability related as long as you do this for everyone in the same position. Once a job offer is made, you cannot retract it because of the disability. If an employee comes to you requesting accommodations, reach out to the HR department to create accommodations to the employee. It is imperative to keep the employee's disability and situation confidential. Remember that supervisors play an important role in discussing accommodations and managing the day-to-day management of the situation. What happens when we violate this law? Failure to comply with ADA requirements could result in monetary fines for our company. It is also possible that an individual would file a lawsuit for lost wages or other related costs associated with the disability discrimination. Number 3 is Age Discrimination Employment Act. This says that we cannot discriminate against individuals older than the age of 40 because of their age. This includes individuals who are applying for jobs as well as our current employees. So what does this mean? We cannot take an individual's age or proximity to retirement into consideration when making job-related decisions. This includes assignments, hiring, firing, pay, benefits, promotions, as well as training opportunities. This includes, we cannot assume that older workers are not able to perform a job or task based on their age. We cannot deny an employee their rightful pay or benefits when the only reason is age. We cannot reduce their benefits based on their age. We cannot refuse to promote an older employee based on their age. We cannot state that a certain age is preferred for a job position or duties. We cannot put an age limit on training opportunities or programs, and we cannot force an employee to retire at a certain age. So, how do we follow this act? In job interviews, we need to be very aware of the words that we use when we're advertising a job opening, as well as what is said in job interviews. Stay away from questions related to the individual's age. The ADEA doesn't specifically prohibit age-related questions, but if you ask age-related questions, you will run the risk of an individual assuming that it was their age if they are not selected for the position. Stick to performance-based interview questions. If an applicant brings up their age, it doesn't give permission to ask age-related questions, just move on from their comments. Harassment. Keep in mind that many types of employee harassment exist. Age harassment is one of them. We do not tolerate age-related joking or harassment at work. Keep age out of discussions and encourage others to do the same. With our current employees, age cannot be a factor when supervisors are making decisions based on promotions, work assignments, and training. We need to assure that all of our employees are equally offered opportunities if they are qualified. So what would happen if we violate this law? Failure to comply with ADEA could make ABC Company vulnerable to discrimination lawsuits. It is important that supervisors use our HR department as a resource to assist with situations that could be viewed as age discrimination. It's important for supervisors to use all policies and procedures and keep good records and documentations of decisions related to employees. The Equal Pay Act states that it's illegal to pay different rates between men and women when the two are performing the same job in the same establishment. This includes all forms of pay: salary, bonuses, vacation, holiday pay, and other benefits. Jobs do not need to be equal, but they have to be substantially equal. It's the job content, not the job title, that determines substantially equal. So what does this mean? It is discrimination not to pay two individuals who perform the same job based on their gender. It's okay to pay different rates for the same job as long as you can identify different skills levels, education, responsibilities, or duties. Using a seniority system that rewards employees based on the length of time with the company is acceptable, as well as a merit or incentive system where pay is based on the performance and quality of the work performed. Having a shift differential, paying more for less popular shifts, is also legal. How do we follow this act? It is important to collaborate with our HR department when offering starting wages as well as pay increases to make sure that both genders are paid equally if they are in the same job. Make sure that you follow all policies and procedures in place regarding starting pay rates, merit increases, as well as promotion pay increases. Bring all complaints of pay discrimination to the HR department. What happens when we violate this law? Failure to comply with EPS could make ABC Company vulnerable to discrimination lawsuits. It's important that supervisors use our HR department as a resource to assist with situations that can be viewed as age discrimination. It's important for supervisors to use all policy and procedures and keep good records and documentation of decisions related to employment. And finally, coming in Tiffany's top 6 laws every supervisor should know is the Occupational Safety and Health Act, also known as OSHA. This sets guidelines and regulations for employers to keep their employees and work environments safe and free of hazards such as excessive noise levels, exposure to toxic chemicals, unsanitary conditions, or mechanical dangers. The ultimate goal of OSHA is to reduce on-site hazards and prevent injury, illness, and death in the workplace. So, what does this mean? There are a set of regulations that a company has to follow in order to stay in compliance with OSHA. OSHA conducts random inspections to make sure compliance is met. They will also investigate any complaints that are made. Worker rights include: be trained in a language that you understand, work on equipment that is safe, be provided required safety gear, be protected from toxic chemicals, require an OSHA inspection and speak to the inspector, report any injury or illness and get copies of your medical records, see copies of the workplace injury and illness log, review records of work-related injuries and illness. Employers must follow all OSHA safety and health standards. Find and correct any safety and health hazards. Inform and train employees on chemical hazards using labels, alarms, and information sheets. Provide all needed safety equipment. Keep records of all work-related illness and injury. Post OSHA, Job Safety and Health, it's the law poster. And not retaliate against any employee for exercising their rights. How do we follow this act? Supervisors play a large role in the safety of our workers. It is a supervisor's responsibility for the day-to-day activities of our staff. We use a proactive approach to workplace safety. We identify potential hazards before they become problems. Traditional programs are reactive. After an incident, changes are made. As a supervisor, you must report any unsafe or unhealthy work conditions to the HR department. We will then need to take quick action to correct these issues. It is important to train employees on safety procedures so that they are able to perform their duties in a safe manner and to correct any issues or errors as you see them. If an incident occurs, you are responsible for investigating the situation to determine what happened. It's important to document and report all incidents to HR so that they can be correctly filed. One of your top priorities is to provide a safe work environment for all of our employees. What happens when we violate this law? Ultimately, we want to prevent workplace injury and illness, provide compliance with laws and regulations, and reduce the costs associated with any workplace injury and illness. Doing this will increase productivity and improve business operations as well as engage our employees. There are a variety of consequences for violation of OSHA regulations, and they range from monetary fines, shutting down operations, to death of an individual. It's extremely important that our staff is safe at all times. Today we covered a lot of very important information. As a supervisor, you have a lot of responsibility, but be assured that you are not expected to do this alone. Know that our HR team is here to support and offer guidance in any issue that comes up. We have policies and procedures in place to help with your responsibilities as well. Does anyone have any questions?